So when someone gets pulled over and the officers ask, "Have you been drinking tonight?" which they always do. I don't know. That's the standard. Have you been drinking tonight? What should you actually say?
The answer is we have a constitutional right to remain silent, and people need to um, embrace that, right? There's nothing wrong with not answering a police officer's question. The only things you have to provide a police officer, first of all, always be respectful in your interactions, but the only things you really have to provide is, your pedigree information, right? Your name, driver's license, right? Your address, insurance, things like that. If they're asking you for that stuff and you want to provide that, you provide that. If they're asking you anything outside of that, you have no obligation to answer, and frankly, you shouldn't answer. Even if you only had two drinks, right? Even if you only had one drink, there's no benefit to you answering it. They don't what people and again, I come from a law enforcement family, so it's not like I'm anti-police or anything like that. But the way they're trained is they're not asking you questions to help you out. They're not asking you questions to do you a favor. They're asking you questions to elicit incriminating statements. That's the sole reason they're asking them. So as long as you understand that and you just politely say, you just stay silent. It's awkward, but when they say you have a right to remain silent, you could literally be silent. They could ask you, how many drinks where are you coming from? How many drinks you have? You could just be silent and not say anything.
So
Um,
that's really difficult to for somebody to do. What if I, like I just one of my favorite interviews with an attorney, he was talking about just shut the F up,
yeah.
and I made him to clean out the F out of the statement, but just because it's on the podcast. But I really understood that. But it's so hard to remain silent. Is there something that you can say that will diffuse that? Like, can I get you my license? And because it's like somebody asks you a direct question. As a human being, your natural inclination is to answer that, and that's the death knell of your case in some cases. If you say the wrong thing.
Correct. And you really nailed it on our kind of human, we're wired to want to help and please. And so, whenever I prep witnesses, for example, for a deposition, yeah, I'm always telling them to, tell the truth, but do it in the most concise way, as few words as possible. Because what happens is people get asked questions and they just start, and not only answering, but they're just volunteering information way above and beyond what was even asked, and ultimately hurting their case because now they've just made this long record and they've now really boxed themselves in a sometimes a pretty bad situation. So the same principle kind of applies here. I mean, if it's too awkward to just not say anything, you could just literally say like, officer, respectfully, I'm just exercising my right to remain silent. If you need my license or, you need any information from me or you need my insurance, let me know. Um, or, you know, uh, officer, I'd like to speak to my attorney, if anything, that will kind of shut them down pretty effectively too. Even if you don't have an attorney, you could just, officer, I'd like to speak to, an attorney or my attorney. That's it. I mean, as soon as you're silent or you say, officer, I'm going to exercise my right. As soon as you even say anything like that, they kind of know what the deal is, and they'll tend to just shut it down and they'll go, okay, this person, I'm not going to get anything good out of this person.